Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, how to address underage use of vaping products. MCPS lowers standards for substitute teachers. So what will this mean for your children? And what impact will Congressman Elijah Cummings' sudden death have on Maryland and the nation? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former Majority Leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson. Republican National Committee Woman for Maryland, Nicolee Ambrose. President of the Chevy Chase Women's Republican Club, Laurie Halverson. And education activist, Cynthia Rubenstein. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Eleven-term Democratic Congressman Elijah Cummings died unexpectedly this week from complications of surgery which occurred in September. John, you served in the Maryland House of Delegates alongside Congressman Cummings. What will his legacy be?
Elijah's legacy will be a politician who totally understood his district and the place where he came from all through his career. So I served with him in the legislature when he became Speaker Pro Tem in the House of Delegates. I was the Majority Leader. Cass Taylor was the Speaker who appointed him to be the first African American Speaker Pro Tem in Maryland. He had the qualities that he carried all the way through his congressional career of always being able to take the moral stance in the House of Delegates. And my favorite moments for Elijah, and I will think about this as we go through the memorial services with him. But whenever he stood up, people would just kind of push back their chair, waiting for the minister of him to come out, the preacher. And he was, even as a young man, he was fantastic at it. And I'll never forget there was a fight about needle exchange in the city of Baltimore. And there was a lot of opposition and a lot of controversy about needle exchange, but it was something William Donald Schaefer, the governor then, wanted to have happen, him coming from Baltimore. And Elijah stood up there and just brought the entire House of Delegates together on that issue. It was like, this is something that mattered to him personally, mattered to his district, mattered to making Baltimore better. And I will never forget that speech. It was powerful, and every time he stood up, it was a powerful speech. And that proved true in Congress.
Well, he's going to be missed. Cynthia, any thoughts on Congressman Cummings passing?
Well, we've certainly seen a lot of him in the last few months on the Oversight Committee and having to balance some very, very difficult situations. But what I think of when I think of Elijah Cummings is that he was one of those individuals who was always comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. And that was the role that he often played throughout his legislative career.
Thank you, Cynthia. Laurie, any thoughts?
I think he'll be known for his perseverance, and he was really a civil rights activist. And I think as a Republican, you could go up to him and he would listen to you. So that's what I would say.
Now, Nicolee, you're from Baltimore. You've probably had many dealings with the congressman. Your thoughts?
Well, I live about 1 to 2 miles from his district line, and there's so many great things that can be said about Chairman Cummings. He's a story of the American dream. I mean, his parents were sharecroppers and moved up to Baltimore, where he was born, one of 7 children. He went to Howard, graduated from University of Maryland Law School, and he loved his district. He had about half of Baltimore City. What I will say is in his 23 years in Congress, though, there was just a sea change in the area which he represented. When I first got involved, it was about the time he was elected to Congress, and you could not question the status quo. There was a firm, solid, well-organized Democrat machine in Baltimore City that just doesn't exist today. A lot of it's, and I hope everyone would agree, it's good to question the status quo. Competition is a healthy thing, and although he remains tremendously personally popular, it's just there's a lot more inquisitiveness going on in his district these days.
Well, I'm going to ask you to lead us out of this segment. What will Governor Hogan do? He has great latitude as to when he can call the special election or not.
Right. Well, my prediction is that he's given 10 days to decide how it's going to go, and there's very specific benchmarks laid out. So my prediction would be a primary special election in January, then you have 65 days to have a general special election, and then you're going to start it all over again with the general cycle primary in April 2020, and then the normal general in November. Busy year.
That's an interesting perspective, because he could wait all the way to 2020 before calling the special election and align it with the regular primary seasons. But we got to go on to our next topic, because there's many important issues here in Montgomery County that we need to discuss. Laurie, the threat from e-cigarettes is in the news, and while condemning the marketing of e-cigarettes to teenagers, Scott Gottlieb, former head of the FDA, stated the unfortunate thing is these products can be helpful in currently addicted adult smokers as they transition from cigarettes to something less harmful. Now, the state has enacted a new law raising the age to purchase tobacco from 18 to 21, but is this enough?
I think raising the age is helping, but I think our county council has other ideas, and they've added another. They're going to be suing the manufacturers, which I think that's the wrong avenue to take. I think that how are they going to win a lawsuit, which is going to cost money from all the taxpayers? How are they going to win a lawsuit against a company that has they got their license through the government, right? And they are doing what they said they were going to do. So I just don't see that they're going to win the lawsuit in the first place.
Well, I think also the broader issue is that there are multiple defendants, not just a company. And if Juul, which seems to be the target for most of this, there has to be a causal relationship.
Yeah, well, I feel
they're
like
going to have a problem.
Yeah, the issue should be more about educating our parents and students on how to not get your products from the black market, because that seems to be where a lot of the lung issues are happening.
That leads into my question for Nicolee, because Scott Gottlieb also went on to say that the legal vapes have been actively regulated by the FDA since 2017, and he indicated that these tragedies point to illegal vapes that were being used, and also the use of THC in these products, not as they were intended. So can government control the illegal use of these products?
Right, and that's where I agree with Laurie. You have to focus on education, because you can't help when people are going out and buying their own oils or THC to add to whatever it is they're vaping. And just anecdotally, I was trying to talk to some of my friends who tried to get off cigarettes and move on to vaping, and it's logical, if you think about it from an education perspective, that you should not be putting oil in your lungs. You'd be better off probably putting a leaf in your lungs than a moist oil. So anything we can do to educate people that please do not do this to yourself, and it's got fatal consequences potentially.
John, I mean, here's the before we get into talking about what the council is doing in some other areas, the real addiction is government's addiction to excise taxes, particularly tobacco excise taxes. So if the government wants to shut down this problem and eliminate tobacco, they can do so, but they're addicted to the revenue stream.
Well, I know where you're coming from. The point is, though, that the government, federal and states, have not taken the position of banning cigarettes. They have never taken that position. We can all argue about it. Maryland was a tobacco-producing state for a long time. But the point is, they've never taken that position. So now they're faced with the question of, vaping has many similarities to smoking cigarettes. Some of the same disease problems are popping up.
Absolutely.
And the question is, what do they do about that? And it'll be interesting to see how government people and policymakers react to that, because they've never taken that position on cigarettes.
Well, I know you weren't prepared for that question, because I didn't expect to ask you that, but I also wanted to go on and talk about what the county is doing because the county is expending a considerable amount of energy ever since the election of the county executive and the new county council this past year. They've really been focused on discrimination issues and injustice issues. So, from a different policy perspective, are the council doing the right things? Recently, President Navarro and Councilman Craig Rice introduced a new bill regarding community policing. And this is controversial in the sense that the police feel targeted by this. So are these initiatives the right way to address discrimination?
So we are not the only place on the planet that's dealing with the issue of community policing. The bigger we get, as Montgomery County, over 1 million people here, we're going to look more like cities. And cities are doing this all over the country in terms of how to deal with, community policing. What does that mean? How do we implement it? How do we improve upon it? I'm not surprised that Montgomery County is moving this direction because we're becoming a very big city. And I don't know that it's right or wrong. I just know that lots of other places are dealing with the same idea of how do you integrate the law enforcement into a community in a way that is beneficial to both.
That's a fair point. But Cynthia, and there's a growing perception, as I said, that rank and file feel that the council and the county government sees them as oppressors. I mean, there's suggestions that the chief of police, Tom Manger, resigned in March because of the changeover and because he felt that the police force would be under attack. So is this the best way to address these issues? Well,
the context of how police officers might feel that is that there have been some well-publicized cases of things happening to members of our community of color that have put a spotlight on this issue. What I would like to see in Montgomery County is that we allow police officers and community members to understand each other.
Well, it's a complicated issue. We don't have the time devoted to address all the ramifications. So we're going to have to move on. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about MCPS. MCPS takes over 60% of your budget. And recently, they've lowered the standards for substitute teachers. And so what is that going to mean for your children? You're going to want to stay tuned. Welcome back. Last October, 5 members of the Damascus High School junior varsity football team sexually assaulted 4 of their teammates with a broomstick. Ultimately, the perpetrators were prosecuted and pled guilty to some lesser degree of assault. But in the aftermath, many felt that Montgomery County public school system needed to address this issue on a broad basis, which they did. They hired a national law firm of Wilmer and Hale to conduct a study of hazing at the MCPS high schools. That report concluded that Montgomery County school officials don't really know how to define hazing, and they certainly don't know how to prevent it. Cynthia, is the MCPS school administration under attack, and is it beginning to fall apart under the current superintendent, Jack Smith?
Well, it has been under attack, and this was a horrific incident. But let me say this. The report did point up, yes, students don't know what hazing is. They do know what bullying is because it's part of the curriculum in the school system. They don't really know what hazing is, and they don't know what to do it, how to recognize it, and what to do about it. And the adults are in the same situation. But I was on a college campus in the 70s, and I remember hazing by sororities and fraternities. I would like to know where these boys got this idea, because that's what the report didn't give us. What was the genesis of that attitude where they thought this was okay?
Well, Nicolee, I know we've talked about this before, but it seems to me that there is a social failing in society if people don't know right from wrong.
Couldn't agree with you more. This is disgusting that anyone would think, A, that you can haze someone, period, much less in high school, and that this is their definition of hazing. This could have caused death. This is absolutely horrific. So society has to have standards. This is basic right from wrong. I don't think we should be worried about being judgmental. It is safe to say something is absolutely wrong and should never be allowed again.
Well, the broader question,
And harsher penalties. I'm sorry. If you let these men go, boys go, whatever, with a slap on the wrist for causing near fatal injuries to people, it's unacceptable.
Well, the broader
Why wouldn't
question
someone
is
do it
that,
again?
that it's not just this one incident, but there are other incidents in the school system where they're showing signs that the school system can't control its student populations. And that's the bigger concern that I have, is to, the future of what is really, and has always been known for, a stellar organization. So, which leads me to the question for you, Laurie, which is, they recently announced that they're going to lower the standards for substitute teachers because they can't hire enough. Is this a sign that the educational quality is dropping, or is it a sign that teachers don't want to work in Montgomery County?
I think that the talent pool is just not there now, which is very disappointing to know that in our county we don't have enough college-educated people who are willing to be substitute teachers. Teaching is a wonderful profession, and we don't have enough interest. So now they're moving to, associate degrees, or maybe not even that. So that is just, I think that we're going down the wrong direction. I just am real concerned about this.
John.
Can I just mention one thing? I mean, the standards in other jurisdictions that surround Montgomery County are lower. They already are. And the reason they are is because you have 200 more than that every day that you have to find substitute teachers. I mean, look, we need substitute teachers. We absolutely have to have that. That actually is something that is necessary in the system. The question is, how do you get them, and what kind of standards are they, and are they good? I don't necessarily think that if we come to the same area that Fairfax County is on their standards for substitute teachers, that's going to be a bad thing.
I have to jump in here.
Okay.
Because I want people to know that substitute teachers in the Montgomery County Public School System make under $20 an hour. 10% of the substitute teachers are retired teachers. The rest have to come from all different walks of life. And I do think there is a pool of people with associate's degrees, or 60 hours of credits, who would be good substitute teachers. There's also a difference between someone who comes in for one day and somebody who has to be a long-term sub. Yeah. And you need to have two different standards for that kind of sub.
Once again, we don't have enough time to address all the issues surrounding the education system. And Nicolee, I'm going to have to save the question of whether the Kerwin Commission's recommendation of more money, throw more money at the problem, is the right one, because we have something exciting to talk about, and that's the Nationals. The last time the Nationals went to the World Series, or a Washington baseball team, it was 1933, and that was 86 years ago. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president, and he was in his first term, first of 4, and we were still in the Depression. So how exciting is it that the Nats are going to the big dance? And I'm going to let Cynthia rock the red tonight.
I've been a Nats fan, a long-suffering Nats fan, since 2009. I remember the debacle of 2012. I remember the following debacles in 2014, 16, 17. We finally broke the NLDS Game 5 curse. Then we won over the Dodgers, who had the best record in the National League. And now we're on to the World Series. A friend of mine was interviewed on TV right after the game. He was asked, so how long have you been waiting for this to happen? He said, 86 years, and I'm 68. And then the interviewer said, so when did you realize that it was going to happen? And he said, 1 hour ago. And that's how I feel. I am still delirious with happiness. I am delirious with happiness.
So Laurie, what about you?
Go Nats. I'm just so excited. Even though I'm not an avid follower of the Nats and I haven't been to a game in about 2 years, I am so excited, and I plan to be watching the World Series.
You know, John, Washington lost 2 baseball teams.
Yep.
We lost to the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
We lost the First Senators. and we lost to the Texas Rangers the second.
Right.
So how exciting is
So,
this?
so this is so exciting for me because I remember, and this is how old I am, I remember going with my dad to Griffith Stadium
Yes,
and
sir.
seeing the Washington Senators
Uh-huh.
play. And I want to remind you, Cynthia, that 1933 was the third time they were in the World Series. They were in the World Series in 24 and in 25, so we're going to do it again.
Yes,
You
we
know,
are.
every year from now on. So.
Terrific,
Baby
terrific.
shark.
I went to one game at
No.
Griffith Stadium.
Baby
I was about 6 years old. I remember
I
it.
think I had to be about 6
Yeah.
when I went there. So
They played the Detroit Tigers, and
because they closed down in 1960.
Yeah.
So that'll tell you.
That-
They eventually the stadium closed in '65.
we got to
but-
give
All right,
Nicolee a chance.
Nicolee,
because
go.
As a Cubs fan, you know, maybe she isn't quite so happy.
Okay, so I'm so happy for y'all, and congratulations, Nats, but y'all are cracking me up. I mean, yes, as both an Orioles and a Cubs fan, you're getting to the World Series very quickly, so you just should be grateful and happy. I mean,
Got to do
come
it
on.
2 more
Well,
times.
Come on. Should be very happy with where you are right now.
well, we'll send our condolences
There you go.
to all the Orioles fans that are suffering under the current ownership.
Suffering.
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 And so now we got to wrap it up, and stay tuned for parting shots. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, John Hurson.
So I can't believe this is going to be my parting shot, but I couldn't believe what I saw today, which was General Jim Mattis, the retired Secretary of Defense, compared himself to Meryl Streep. Okay? You figure out how that works, but basically he was taking credit for the fact that he got some criticism from the president, and he said that president criticized Meryl Streep as a not so great actress. So he compared himself to Meryl Streep. How Jim Mattis and Meryl Streep get together, I don't know, but they should. Should be a lovely time.
It's an interesting comparison. I must agree. Nicolee Ambrose, your parting shot.
So the holidays are coming, and I'm thinking what to do, and I have adopted charity that I'm specifically going to work on for Thanksgiving called Mother's Cry. It's Baltimore-based. A sweet older lady started it for mothers who have lost children to violence, and she's providing a Thanksgiving meal before Thanksgiving and some food for every family to take home. So it's a very small nonprofit, but we're going to take care of as many folks as we can. So check out my website, NicoleeAmbrose.com, and I'll have more information for how you can help this nonprofit. Thank you.
That's a wonderful sentiment, and I hope our audience responds. Laurie Halverson, your parting shot.
Yes, the Rockville is having an election coming up, and in fact, you can vote right now by mail. Most of it's by mail. You can go on November 5th to vote, but I just wanted to mention that there is some stuff going on right now, and just for voters, please just focus on the issues. There is one particular person I'd like you to look at, and that is Brigida Mulligan. She's the only one who supports Governor Hogan's transportation plan.
Thank you, Laurie. Cynthia Rubenstein, your parting shot.
I know. I'm talking about the Nats again. On Monday night, when I realized that they might actually get to the World Series, I suddenly panicked. Next Thursday, October 24th, is the 15th anniversary of my organization, Passion for Learning, and I immediately went online to find out when the World Series games are going to be played. The first 3, that is. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So now I don't have to be at my own organization staring down at my phone at the World Series game. So thank you, Nats, and thank you, MLB, for making it Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Go Nats.
You know, it's so funny how passionate this is. When in the third game, even though the Nationals had a large lead, and they put in Fernando Rodney into the ball game as a relief pitcher, I'm thinking, my God, what is Davey doing? There's not enough runs for a 42-year-old relief pitcher. Oh my God, what is he thinking? In any event, it all worked out for the best, and everybody is excited. I know my kids are thrilled by this, and I get a feeling there's a vibe in the city that can translate to good mood and good things for everyone. So I want to thank the panelists for being here tonight. I don't know who's going to show up next Friday night during the first home baseball game of the World Series, but someone will. I'll be here. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.